Settle in, class. I wasn't expecting you to immediately want another, but the poll demanded it, so here we are. Today we're doing an overview of mythology-inspired options for Pathfinder 2, but if you're into D&D, I've got conversions. They'll appear both on screen and in the description, because you know you want to play a Kitsune, or full-size Minotaur, or a merperson, a merson. Now this time I'm covering 10 instead of 8, and I can't pull the whole you already know what a human is card on things like the Hungerseed. So even though these are still fairly well known, we gotta get out of the intro. So are you ready for some of my favorite ancestries? Then let's go. We're starting with the merfolk, because who doesn't want to be a mermaid? Well, other than me, who's afraid of water deeper than a shower, so why am I so excited about this one? Because most of them have a land speed of 5. You can swim just as fast as most can run, but unless you take a feat, you're just a fish on land. Pathfinder has the confidence that you know what you signed up for, be it the campaign or the challenge. They aren't gonna drag you back to the playpen. They trust that if you're wandering out of safety, it's because you're fine with danger. And you are wandering out of safety. They can only last a day or two without water. Now, merfolk might have their palaces and coral and trading outposts on giant sea life, but they really aren't that different from humans. Well, except that magic is everywhere, especially sound and water magic, to the point that it's pretty mundane. To them, a wizard is more like a technician. You're glad for their skills, but you're not running in fear unless you're HP Lovecraft. They speak Thalassic, which is water elemental, they're dexterous and charismatic, and if they succeed on a save against a water effect, they crit instead. They also have the standard no light vision because they mainly live in shallows. Those who do live in deep water are immune to crushing pressure and can see in the dark. Speaking of which, I say fish, but what kind? Your standard fish of the open sea can use water magic to make a shield against fire and acid, with extra resistance if you're already in water or just use an ability that makes it. Sailfish swim fast and jump high, reef fish resist poison and being poisoned, and shark ones have great scent and smell blood from way far away. The shark, along with the deep sea ones, also have access to a feat that makes their bite as strong as a longsword. In case you're unaware, you get 5 special ancestry feats as you level, so what you are plays an important role the whole game. Though I do have to mention, now that we're in the uncommon and rare ancestries, we aren't going to be seeing 40 to 50 feat options like the human. It's usually more like 15 to 25. In the case of the merfolk, we have a few for movement on land or water, even one at level 9 to just grow legs at will. Eat your heart out, little mermaid. We've got water magic like making whirlpools, and a few weird ones I just love, like a level 13 one that makes everyone drop their items and slow down because you started crying and they think your tears are shiny, valuable pearls rolling away. I think my favorite is healing flesh. Those myths about mermaids being immortal and granting health if you eat them are totally wrong, and you will kill over that rumor. However, you can take 1 point of damage to use your blood as a better healer's kit, and if someone eats your fresh heart and liver, they heal fully and stop aging for 8 years. Now, as we went over last time, each ancestry has a couple level 17 feats that summarize them. It might be their lore or the pinnacle of what they've been building to, but merfolk get 2. One is the myth of sirens. You can sing a song of foretold doom. Your target takes 10d10 mental damage, becomes frightened, and for the next round has to roll twice on checks and saves and take the worst result. If they're in water or on a boat, their save against this gets -4. On the other hand, you could choose Kraken's Call for aid from a fellow sea creature. Open a bunch of portals to Krakens, which grab and constrict everything around them in a storm of snapping tentacles. Either one is thematic and fun, and you know that's what I'm looking for. The merfolk feels exactly like I want him to. Plenty of fishy fun, a logistics puzzle to move on land, the feeling of unrivaled power if you have water, and drawing on myths for their feats, as well as turning off the problems if the fun wears out. So we turn to the tier list, which isn't the best objectively, it's the ones I want to play the most and get the creative juices flowing. I can't really do good to bad in general since I don't prioritize power, so they'd all be top tier, so instead we're doing the ones who convince me to play. In that regard, this is A tier. I want to be a caster swimming through the air by shaping water, a gallant knight on horseback who saves the princess, but instead of revealing her face, it's her tail. Give me someone who thinks the sea is tame and it's the land that's full of terror, treats this like a survival horror. There's all these strange creatures and you can only move on one plane. How do you fight back or even dodge? Bonus points if they're from the deep sea and look like a horror monster. Now my fear of water holds me back, but I wanted to be a mermaid on land for over a decade, and this lets me do it while feeling like I'm properly restrained because they trust I can handle the quirks of being different. And speaking of different, I usually wait till the halfway point, but did you know that if you've made it this far, there's an 80% chance you'll make it to the outro? So hit those buttons and let me know when I hit one of your S tiers. Speaking of which, it's Centaur time. We're doing some of the weird shapes first. These survivalists are proud nomads with tight communities that defend and nurture the land they live on. What I find interesting is that many tribes have had to learn to do that the hard way. Turns out they're so touchy about overhunting because they've done it and seen the cost firsthand. People are always assuming that they're aggressive and competitive and speak to horses. Well, 1, you'd be aggressive too if people kept trying to cut down and pollute your home. 3, no, they can't speak to horses. That's racist. They might be fast like a horse and can carry extra weight like one, and they're strong and wise too with poor charisma. But they can speak Bay and see in the dark and aren't any more of an animal than the rest of us. But 2, yes, they are competitive, passing on knowledge, living with nature, and playing fair are their prominent moral code. I mean, they're athletic and restless. They gotta do something with that energy. Also, they are large size and weigh a literal ton. How are you finding housing or dealing with ladders? Well, that's your trade-off and a fun challenge you signed up for. Some of us like to find the workaround. Centaurs like a challenge, and they'll even compete over the accomplishments of their students. After all, they do have teachers and tons of knowledge from medicine to prophecy, just like the Centaurs of Myth. Now, something I forgot to call out by name with a merfolk book, every ancestry has variations called a heritage. With the Centaur, you have ones made for melee combat, getting a better kick, or bumping their 8 HP to 10 with extra balance. Your pattern might give them stealth in some environments, and my favorites make you medium-sized or extra fast, because you're already typed fastest at 30 speed, but some of you got those extra Z's. But if you want to go off of nurture instead of nature, the budding speaker is for you. The two main paths for Centaur religion are the green speaker's nature and related gods, or the faith speaker's angels and demons. If you're a budding speaker, you choose one and get an innate cantrip. You're probably taking this for other feats to shapeshift or get better spells, but magic's always good. Your other feats play into common sense and lore. You can be faster, get bursts of speed, trample people, be a better mount, shove better. But on the lore side, your mentoring gives you better aiding to the point that it can grant temporary HP, turn checks into games for an easier time, heal better, and of course even the constellations show centaurs as legendary archers. This comes to a head with your ultimate feat, which lets your arrows tangle people in a web of starlight. Or if you took that innate magic, you can turn into thematic creatures like plants or angels. If that didn't sell you, frankly, there is nothing I can say. I've long had ideas for lance-wielding bandit rebels or reverse horse girls who are obsessed with humans. I have run and had people run bottom halves of all sorts. Find any animal and talk to your GM, it'll be fun. Dracotar are wonderful, and reflavoring is the spice of life for any game outside the official society. Lean hard into the mystic natural side, and we can't forget the classic Centaur for disease control. It's a staple I thought of when I first started and was so disappointed to find out that everyone else had thought of it too. Please go and play them in my stead. Unfortunately with me, they will never see play. I can never pass up a chance with my dearest mommy. Shut up, M-A-M-I, it's her name. I know I've told the story before, but she's a tiny deertar whose parents begged the fae for blessings of beauty and fertility. One that was horribly twisted when they started laughing afterward because they tricked a free blessing out of her. When she became a teenager with an army of harassing suitors and her bag on fire from the strain, she begged the fae to help. Why was she the one having to pay for this? She promised she would always do her best to do good and help all good people if they just made it stop. The fae took pity and gave her magic and gear to help her plan. Then learned the hard way she is dumb as a rock. I mean, has a picture book explaining what a people even is level of dumb, and causes chaos with her misunderstandings of that concept. She's a ditzy magical girl causing grief and hilarity to a whole court of fae. Also a tailor, and I bring her back whenever I can. Easy S tier, you will never hear me saying nay, even if the rest of her species is haunting me. When I'm bored at my day job, I run a tabletop gaming Smash or Pass tournament blog. How do they get in every book? Anyway, next up is our other giant animal person, the Minotaur. They're as bulky as it gets with 10 starting HP and strength and constitution for buffs. They speak giant, see in the dark, and have horns with the strength of a harpoon. And yes, this is a fully grown, large Minotaur. Their auras are bigger and they can use bigger weapons, but they have trouble finding loot in their size. Pathfinder knows you're a smart little cookie and you'll figure it out. The story goes that one day a master stonemason saw a murky vision of a hero god demanding a temple for his recent battle. Details weren't exactly clear, but you don't deny a god, so he made the temple with his symbol of glory from battle, the bull. Then he got turned into a Minotaur because that bull was supposed to be an enemy, not the ally. The mason was furious over 17 years of work being worthless due to a vaguely given detail and just went under the building to keep working. And unsurprisingly, the giant buff artist bull person with a relatable sad backstory quickly became a whole species. So the Minotaur are actually architects and artists. They traveled all over because they like learning new styles. They have a labyrinth because they keep making new buildings and statues for fun until you have sprawling fresco and social gardens for miles. They also like mental mazes like puzzles and mysteries and philosophy, and have a strong disdain for gods in general. It's a moral failing to leave fate in their hands. Gods are petty and to be avoided. Minotaur are generally blunt, indulge in minor body mods, and while they're mostly level-headed, they prefer to speak with action. You get one warning before learning this philosophy nerd is still a giant bull construction worker. At least usually, the little horn version is closer to human size. We also got ones that can ignore some types of difficult terrain, resist cold environments, or sneak better and move faster while doing it. My favorite variants are the Slab Soul, which summons walls to fall on people, and the Ghost Bull. You can always point yourself to locations you know and are good against confusion. It's not the best, but you're ghost white and have connections to the underworld guiding you. Their feats are mostly what you'd expect. They make you better at puzzles, or crafting, or getting through the environment. Lots for stealth and tracking too, to be that stalking predator. They're omnivores and mostly eat lichen. I love the little off-the-wall ones like talking to herd animals, or bits of unwanted divine magic left over from that guy. But of course there's plenty for combat, getting extra reach or better horns, or moving allies around so they don't get in your way. And your pinnacle ability lets your allies join in on the fun, with a little number called Begin Stampede. Move twice, gore the enemy, and if it hits, everyone else can move twice and hit better next turn. Or you can just do the mind route and shove people into an extra dimensional labyrinth. They're both solid in power, flavor, and fun. Plus their overall flavor is such a welcome twist on the format, and there's barely anyone like them, although there are some. There's a species so close that at first even the Minotaur were confused, so now they just laugh if you compare them. The Sarangay are care about people, which is a type of water buffalo. They have soul gems on their forehead, like their soul controls them through that gem, and they go catatonic if it's gone, though it can be regrown with a ritual. Wedding ceremonies are a swapping of souls in the most literal sense, and taking it off outside that ceremony is heresy of the highest highest degree. They're a bit taller than humans at 6 to 7 feet with a standard 8 HP and 25 speed. They're strong and charismatic, though not very wise. You still have a horn attack though, just slightly weaker. They're far more gentle than people expect, but still incredibly protective of what they love. They're like the overbearing family who loves you dearly but really needs to let you breathe. It's probably how they're raised. It's a small, tight-knit community type of deal. Strict hierarchy with the leader in a multi-tier palace, their family doing whatever they want, and everyone else doing whatever's needed. But it's not backed by like religion or anything. It's all on respect and trust that they know what they're doing. If the leader's bad, they don't hesitate to throw him out. Their religion is based on the moon, with their horns representing a crescent moon and the gem like a full moon. They believe they come from Father Moon and Mother Earth, and everything down to the leaves and dust has smaller gods inside. Nature's as divine and alive as them, and they serve happily. Honestly, it's a nice dichotomy. Minotaur are philosopher artists finding meaning outside the divine and fleeing from their past as fast as they can. Sarangay are traditionalists doing whatever they're asked and making only what's needed, loving the divine and their history with them. Anyway, they named their heritage after the phases of the moon. Waxing moons are better at jumping and swimming since they live in the swamp, while waning moons are secret keepers trained in a skill they can re-roll on a crit fail. The full moon are frail healers that use wisdom instead of strength, while the new moons are halfling size but as bulky and pushy as Minotaur. The fuller moons are mental, while the emptier moons are physical. The half moon's supposed to bring them together by being big but smart, but you really just get lore and better knowledge with the flavor of being tall. I love my flavor, but I do wish I had something mechanical, though they do have both in spades for their feats. There's a few odd bits like healing and stealth, and I really like the one where you choose a god's busing at night to get better healing or perception when resting, but your feats are mostly focused on your soul gem. It can give you spells or resistance or stun people, and you can even use it to deflect things like arrows. And of course, it's your pinnacle, with moon and earth making you a giant flying pearl colossus that dazzles everyone around you. Or you can just choose to bull rush through a line of smaller creatures, but that's not as cool or even effective. You're not a minotaur, so this only works on things that are goblin-sized at best, so just be an image of divinity. Otherwise, you're ignoring what makes you unique, and you really shouldn't. Sarangay look like Minotaur, but they're special and don't play the same. I mean, you can just make them a different looking Minotaur, especially the New Moon Mini Minotaur, but maybe try a rogue who learns stealth in the swamp. You could be a pretty magical girl caster throwing beams out of her soul gem. Make a priest who's like an out-of-touch youth pastor constantly trying to convert people, only to realize that their metaphors entirely hinge on people being covered in moon imagery and wearing their soul. Though that brings up a question, because this is our first rare ancestry. People take a -5 penalty to even knowing what you are. What are you about, and how do you react to all these creatures you've likely only heard tales of too? Go through creatures and people you remember from previous campaigns and videos and think of how you'd react to them. It's a good building exercise. But as for whether I'd play them, honestly, these are cool and I love they're in the game. I love trying to learn about them and I think their abilities are well done, but they're just not my style. Now as for the Minotaur, obviously sneaking around while 10 feet tall and throwing walls is great, but have you ever heard the tragedy of Goldo the Wise? I thought not. It's not a story the book would tell you, because I made it up on the spot while sleep deprived. In the first campaign I ever ran, someone had a Minotaur. I felt cautious about making him full size because in Pathfinder 1, size affected your stats. I promised him he'd be large eventually, but asked he give me time. So in my world, it was decreed that Minotaur were bound to the god who formed them. They aged and grew as he ate. Now you might expect something cool, like that's why they do sacrifices or it makes him eternally hungry, but no, he just ate melons in heaven. Every melon would age them a day. He'd been asleep for 17 years. Suddenly, Goldo woke up and started rapidly switching between devouring at mock speed and power napping. Every few days at random intervals, I would yell out for a reflex save as out of the Minotaur explodes a slightly bigger Minotaur. The party butcher developed a constant twitch to dodge the shower of blood and trauma. Their tale was an epic from level 1 to 15, and I will never forget him shoving his friends off a mecha dragon they fought way too early. They had somehow managed to lasso it and rip their way inside, but it was flying straight up to choke him out. So he threw the others out, hoping the Hunter's Rock would catch him, grabbed the wing joints from the inside, and held them in place to ride it into the ground and take them both out. Fucking hero. So should you be a Minotaur? Oh, definitely. Objectively, this is a B or even A tier, but by my rules, I gotta say D. All my ideas are generic at best because I've already seen the peak. And if you think this video's peak, hit that. Let's move on to fairy tales with our other rare ancestry of the day, the Sprite. Long ago, little immortal Fae came over from the first world. They sought to sate their curiosity by finding new magic in this strange static land. They found it had its own Fae and exiles from their world. They laughed and learned and played pranks, helped others find love, and guarded anything magical, assuming it held still long enough. But when the next generation of these explorers was born, disaster hit. The new sprites didn't grow their wings, and even worse, some of the older sprites were losing theirs. This obviously wasn't a place for them, so they went back home. But these wingless sprites weren't weak. In fact, they were stronger than anyone. They just needed more time to grow. These little sprites are dexterous and clever, but not very strong, with 6 HP and only 20 movement. However, all their attacks are magical, and they're so tiny they can ride on other people's shoulders and in their bags and such. You truly are a tiny little fairy, boisterous and ancient and looking for someone to listen. Note, however, that this size comes with challenges. You can hide behind others because you're so tiny, but to hit with most weapons, you need to be inside the other person's area. One of the example fairies is is wielding a pocket knife like a longsword. She doesn't exactly have much reach. And yes, I said fairy. Fairy, fae, sprite. They find our taxonomy laughable. They'll call anyone anything because they don't care. They'll come back as something new next time anyway. So what kind are you right now? Because basically every little fae is an option. The classics are the telepathic Draxie, the glowing sprite, the illusion-loving Greg, and the oddly large pixie. I mean, they're goblin sized, but that means they're 2 or 3 feet instead of inches. I really like the candy-making Melixi, who talks to invertebrates, and the bat-like Nectera, who are great at finding things. But Jan Shah gives us the swimming Langley, the lion Kanchil, and the bardic Gandharva. Those can summon instruments and treat their spells as divine. Of course, the best of these is the spaceless Karibo thing. Look at them. Whenever they fail a save on an emotion effect, they just succeed anyway. I don't care if they're chaos. I want to be friends with a flying Tribble. And speaking of friends, you need to figure out a way to move on your own. Riding in a purse is fun, but in combat it makes you both worse. Now obviously there's a line of beats for growing your wings until they're the prettiest ever and totally unique. However, you can also ride the traditional companion of the sprite, the Corgi. This is the best thing ever. You've also got options for classic moves like sleep and invisibility and talking to animals and tons of little magics. You can even take a deeper connection to the first world, getting a bunch of max HP and healing in exchange for a weakness to cold iron. I adore that, but now we hit my only problem with the sprite. Along the deep river is their only level 17 feat. Once a year when you die, you can reincarnate, coming back a week later. This is great and incredibly appropriate because that's how all sprites work, just faster. But hey, Paizo, 2 little problems. 1, why is this a much worse version of what the Leshy gets when it honestly makes more lore sense here? And 2, why is it only for sprites who are from one region or following a specific god? I mean, obviously this is an S tier either way, but that's just a crime. I've been obsessed with tiny characters for as long as I can remember thanks to things like Magic School Bus and Pikmin. Let me be a Tinkerbell Barbarian with a scalpel for a spear, an inventor with an action figure suit and literal rocket punch, or a martial artist vigilante with a chopstick staff and mantis armor. And don't forget that even without being a rogue, you're gonna be able to get pretty much anywhere. Pretend that every superstition that anyone hears about any fairy is true and sow chaos with the rumors. This is your chance to be a menace, but not your only one. How about an actual menace? It's what everyone expects of you after all, and what that creeping voice in the back of a changeling's head demands. A changeling is a versatile heritage. That means you pick another ancestry for your starting HP, but instead of choosing your heritage, you choose this. Then for your feats, you can choose from your ancestry or from here. The best part is that this just means it's really strong in your blood. You could be half hag, or you could be so corrupted by their magic that you basically are anyway. However, even if you don't choose this, Paizo wants you to take whatever part of their look you like. Maybe you aren't half dragon, but your granddad was, so you've still got some cool scales. But for now, your half hag was probably abandoned. Anyone can tell from your vivid homophobia. No, from your vivid heterochromia. A nice bright purple or something like your mom. It also gives you low light vision if you don't have it, or dark vision if you do. You're oh so pale and thin with dark hair. As you age, it gets even stronger, with your powerful feat options mostly being your mother's influence emerging. Things like claws or trickery or even prehensile hair, as well as your magical side of course, like resistance to sleep and casting odd magic and manipulating the elements. If you take that route, your ultimate feat lets you mess with the elements every few minutes, becoming like the storm hag or whatever you came from. Or you can just go the classic hag route and learn to drive people mad. Though my favorite is Mother's Mindfulness, letting you take the damage of an attack in someone else's place. It's overcoming your parental influence to be caring. Anyone can hear the call to join the coven and become a hag. It's not just women, though it is mostly women. Not every changeling gets the call. Some people spend their whole lives fearing for the day they get it and whether they can even resist. Some people get the urge constantly, trying to hide it from their friends so they're not seen as a monster. I love that it has a cool storyline built in, an almost vampire-like tale about hiding your nature and if you're still truly human, or elf, or goblin, or whatever. How does this affect your relationship with your ancestry? Maybe hags moved into abandoned sections of a Minotaur maze, and the others accepted you but you left them feeling guilty and not wanting to hurt them. Maybe your mom was an orc who fought with her tusks and corrupted you by swallowing hag blood while pregnant. You didn't even know that the call's a temptation. You think it's a battle blessing and you're being called to hunt hags like your mom. Or maybe you are a monster but you're resisting anyway because you're not their monster. To me, a good versatile heritage will enhance your base ancestry, and I think this works great. So I say A tier. I want to be a corrupted Leshy born of a weird plant a hag was growing. On a similar note, Hungerseed are pretty much the same but with Oni. If you don't know what that is, it's a terrifying mountain monster known for magic and lightning and especially eating people. They're often used in the same sort of fairy tale role you might see a troll or ogre, but smarter and with a more supernatural bent. In Pathfinder, they're bloodthirsty shape-shifting giants that used to be minor gods. Though even the worst Oni still aren't that much worse than the most evil of humans, to the point that some people in remote villages will marry them. These giant hotheads have horns that hit like a spear and things like claws or fangs or a third eye. They lean towards being mercenaries and seek out fellow outcasts, so they fit right in with the average party. Just be warned that they do have the Oni hunger, so the really bad temper is probably just being hangry all the time. Given the link to the spirit world, I wouldn't be surprised if they literally had an Oni's hunger but without a body big enough to sate it. I personally think that because your feats are based around turning into an Oni, like your bloodlust giving you haste when you're wounded, or letting your third eye see in the dark, or shoot codons of energy. I also mean that literally, like you turn into an Oni, from getting big and looking like one every 10 minutes at level 1 to basically getting their spirit by the end. Your eyes glow glow, you intimidate people around you, you're stronger and tougher and fly and deal lightning damage while sensing flood and anyone on low HP. You do get stunned for a full round as you come off that high and compose yourself, but bites rarely last more than a minute, so that's usually just flavor. In case you haven't noticed, a lot of these bursto feats are pretty amazing to try to tempt you off the base ancestry. They only gives you a physical urge to indulge like they do, indulge in them, in food and blood and body. Think of a witch indulging in the occult or taboo, guided by the supernatural world that inhabits them. A barbarian tempted to strike back at a world that would hurt them, to smash and take the joy they crave. Maybe make this a little known princess who suddenly goes from 2 feet to 10 and craves a challenge. My dream version is either that or a puppet acting like Tibbers from League of Legends, but we'll cover them on a different day. For now, S tier, an edgy monster side can improve a lot of characters. And if you don't like Oni, swap it out for a demon or a troll or any big monster. The only flaw I can find with these is that they don't have their parents' flaw, the hilariously named Bean Panic. Oni are terrified of beans and nobody knows why. Throw a handful of beans at them and they'll run away screaming with irrational fear. It's a wordplay reference. The word mame or bean sounds the same as mame, destroying evil. It's led to all sorts of rituals and ceremonies, some of which do involve throwing beans at representations of evil. Though if people don't know that, I wonder if these Oni were actually originally from Earth. You'd be surprised how many creatures are. It's just a planet in a different system after all. But this moves us into our last trio. We'll start with the Tengu, which in mythology can be depicted as anything from a person with a long nose to a bird monster. But if you're mostly familiar with tabletop, you're probably expecting the crow person, which is the base form here. Tengu are talkative survivalists from the mountains, but find themselves comfortable anyway. They grab friends and knowledge as eagerly as a normal crow does shiny objects. That leads to their biggest issue, as the original Tengu homeland is dying out. Not in population, I mean the traditional ways were nearly killed under repression. The wandering Tengu, known as migrating, naturally just throw themselves into any tradition they see, so their old folklore and creation gods are at risk, even though people aren't trying to abandon everything sacred. Tengu like to work with their talents and are regarded as generally lucky, at least lucky to have around because they absorb bad luck, which does actually have some truth to it. Unfortunately, that does get them in trouble because they are judgmental, so they often make criminal friends while not knowing the local laws. While they are the size of a human, they've only got 6 HP thanks to their hollow bones. They're dexterous with low light vision to see in shadow, and also have a beak that's a 1d6 finesse weapon because today's true theme is that your body can kill. And that's not the only one either. Your heritage can get you either talons or the teeth of a dog, likely in reference to some having canine features, or the name meaning heavenly dog, or a 1300-year-old story with a good bit of debate on what they meant by Tengu. Sorry, I'm just not used to this anymore. So much of D&D's mythology is just straight wrong because Gygax used one book and some movie knowledge. That shaped a lot going forward in pop culture, and modern D&D doesn't seem to do much more research. Even though I started in Pathfinder, I got so used to D&D for the past few years, it can still shock me sometimes when they seem to have actually done research. Anyway, speaking of the body, some have wings or can swim. Their spiritual connection with wind and storm also might make them resist electricity and see through fog. Their spirit connection can also give them a pretty nice cantrip and vitality lash. My favorites are the Jinx, to resist things like curse and doom because their whole family is just so used to bad luck. I know the feeling, buddy. I know people who don't believe in luck to the point that they get angry if you even mention it, but now believe in it specifically for me because mine is just that bad. And there's a feat for it too, eating nearby effects that mess with fate. A lot of your feats are bird stuff like flying or stealing or resisting water with your waxy seabird feathers, but most of them are based around folklore, like using fans as weapons to control wind and lightning, or turning into a long-nosed humanoid. At level 17, that humanoid form can also double in size and fly with the right feat. So normally I would point at their 2 level 17 feats as the culmination of what they are, but the redesign added 2 completely new ones. But the old ones are still valid, they just had to update the old tags. One of the old ones was casting lightning bolt or gust of wind on a crit, and the other was getting spirit blast and resistance to good and evil as a blessing from a god. Both of those old ones are good, but now you can turn into a powerful bird-like form or curse others into harmless little animals. That is a lot. You know, this is making me realize something. I've made Tengu before, a curious and peppy little oracle named Kiki, and there's so much interesting lore here, but I'm struggling to think of characters that aren't just the baseline. A seabird sailor trying to see the world, a curious little scholar looking in every library and under every rock with equal vigor. I would actually like to play a little bookworm now that I think about it, but that's the closest I got to original. That isn't like me. I'm not sure how to feel about everything I want to play being what they set out for me. I honestly do like this ancestry and what they've done with it, but C tier. And if I wasn't imagining a cute little bird in glasses clutching books, this honestly might have been my first F tier. Thankfully, I already know I love the Tanuki. These lazy genius furry friends are masters of illusion and transformation, and most importantly, partying. Our working class heroes think their magic should be used like all things, for fun. They break rules and keep their culture simple, and most importantly, take the mighty down a notch. Now don't get me wrong, they're as loyal and reliable as you're gonna get. They take pride in a job well done with even the most humble tasks. But life's a joke and failure's just a punchline. Get off your high horse and relax. Laughter and forgiveness are their moral code, and the worst thing you can do is feel entitled or prank someone when they're down. You gotta punch up and roll with the punches. We're in this together, and it's the only way we're getting out when the luck runs dry. They have a cheap trick to turn into an animal, but they don't have the divine favor or magical mastery history of the other ancestries. They don't have halfling luck or Tengu lightning. They have great constitution and charisma and the toughness of a Minotaur despite being 3 to 4 feet tall. They have cute fluffy bodies, love brown things and people, and have an absolutely massive belly. But anything else they have, they got for themselves, and they honestly don't plan for the future. It's all gonna go belly up in the end, so laugh and play on the way down, and you might make a victory from it. As for the variants, they are the opposite of whatever they claim. The restraint ones have scent and a bonus to finding food and drinks. The ones who take pride in their body turn into other people and things. You carry alcohol to remind yourself to be virtuous, so virtuous that you have poison resistance and can eat while sick since you're used to it. Courageous ones are better at running away with a special tactical retreat, and the even-tempered ones always crit emotion effects one way or the other. How's that for flavor? They're even pranking you in their names. And as for feats, I love them all. You've got plenty for shapeshifting into creatures and people and things, and even for enhancing others' transformations. You can merge with them to make them massive. You can even transform other things like making boats or changing terrain or making money. Note that these transformations are temporary, and when the money turns back to leaves, you don't want to be around. And of course you've got ones related to partying, like drumming on your belly for music or making it so tough from laughter it becomes a weapon. But it can also be your ultimate ability, summoning 808 dancing Tanuki to stampede your enemy, and just your enemy, trampling them for a minute while leaving your friends intact. My favorite part is that you can end the effect early, but they'll all be annoyed and grumbling while they leave. Your other option for ultimate ability is turning into a 50 by 50 foot terrain feature with a building. Let your friends have a nice place to sleep with a hot spring and food and everything. You will always have a party even if you have to be the venue. Where do I even begin with these ones? Of course, there's every kind of party animal, but they're also savvy business people. Spend the campaign going full Robin Hood while scamming any rich quest givers. With all their heritage names being the reverse, come up with a full character, then make that just be what they say they are. And I stand by what I said earlier, these are down-to-earth working class magical creatures. I'm imagining an old trucker or farmer who's annoyingly boisterous but keeps the mood up. Like he frustrates you, but you can't stay mad because you know he means well. Show me prankster grandpa Tanuki, come on. Though for me, I mean, you know I'd go full union-loving revolutionary. My first vehicle was carved from the body of my second job. Workers' rights are bleed, motherfucker. S tier, was there ever any doubt? Finally though, we get to the other shape-shifting trickster animal. They're an old favorite of mine, the first mythic creature from that region I really looked at because it featured in a lot of my first anime. Called a holdover from my obsession with wanting to be Hinata from Naruto growing up. The Kitsune are woody fox people who can turn into either a normal fox or a common ancestry depending on their heritage. While there are a few Kitsune settlements, they are uncommon for a reason. Their parent might be the only one they ever knowingly find. However, when they do, they play a little social game by subtly trying to trick each other into breaking character. They're charismatic creatures who innately pick apart social dynamics to try to blend in or mess with people. They're not like Tanuki just playing pranks for fun, they like stories and riddles and messing with assumptions. But it's also just a game to them, so they'll cause a little chaos, but they do their best to not take it too far. After all, they form strong social networks and are great at making people get along. Though the people in those networks might know different characters based on themselves, but only in part. Since they effectively have two bodies and connection with the spirit world, they might view their different forms as entirely different selves. That duality of mundane and magical is in their heritage as well. You might naturally resist divine magic, or cold from your habitat, or have a bite attack from living in the wild. On the other hand, you might draw on magic for better lying, or an intimidating aura, or just some spells to manipulate minds. Your feats bring a lot of magic too, with disguises and illusion and lights and fire, even a little magical pet rock for a familiar. And of course, there's plenty for shape-shifting, like getting new forms or turning into other people, or seeing through other people's transformations. Your final power is even determined by what you can turn into. If you can't turn into a fox, you get possession. Try to take over someone's body once per day. They also get some subtle foxy features. It's a classical mythological power. It's nice. But if you can turn into a fox, you get to turn into a flaming house-sized fox monster with magic and better melee, or an ice version if you're the frozen wind variant. Did you think I was talking about Naruto at the start for no reason? Obviously, I'm gonna turn into a giant nine-tailed fox demon and wreak havoc, or at least that's what I thought. Don't get me wrong, they have some great stuff in here. I love their outlook, I love their abilities. You can have some fun with this. Slip through faces and personalities constantly. Roll dice to see who you are that day. Maybe you're an actor or tabletop gamer, exploring characters you never got to play. They also love wordplay and humor, so pull out the dad jokes and puns. I would go basic with an evil manipulator. If messing with minds is taboo, that means someone must have done it. I did that whole social manipulation for everyone else's benefit thing for most of my life. I'm done. Let me be selfish for once. The issue is, a lot of characters I'd want to be really require a good group of people I know and trust with characters I'll banter with. And let's be real, that's not always a given. I can think of characters who would be A tier, but as a whole, B for now, and they might slip. Sorry, I have a soft spot for animal spirits, but especially foxes and wolves. To put them anything short of S feels like a betrayal. I feel weird. We might have to end this one.
Wait, what about the hobgoblin? They were house spirits.
And absolutely nothing like their myths, so they're going on a different
What
list.
about the kobold? People got all sorts of myths about us.
The kobold and dragonblood are going with the reptiles, and before you ask, the half vampires with the other undead.
And reflections for ghost stories?
I had to move some things around. around. Any other questions?
Are bugbears playable yet?
Oh, not yet, buddy. Must be an oversight, but there's a lot of homebrew versions. You know we love you. Anyway, next up, we'll be covering animal people. Though in the meantime, we'll do at least one monster video. Big thanks to Feral Goblin, Level 1 Cleric, Snake Oil, Modern Masquerade, and Dr. Mug for the support on my coffee. Make sure you check out my other Ancestry videos, and this is too long for me to be clever. Especially since I was so sick for a week, I was unable to walk and hallucinating. The boss gave me a plague and kept me from sleeping for days, so thanks for the medicine money, and that's actually where I originally ended it, but one more last minute notice. I think I might have given myself just a little burnout. His cough has ruined so many takes. I have 11 hours of footage. And then my first draft got corrupted and I'm just tired. I'll try to take a week or two and get my energy back and then get right back to work. Hopefully you won't even notice. I was gonna try waiting until my usual birthday break in May, but I just can't. Oh, and by the way, I could not find official pronunciation on any of those words from Tian Sha, except for Tian Sha, which people argue is wrong anyway. So I eventually found some pronunciations, but thanks to tech issues, I had to record them 4 times. Sitting in the closet saying the same word for hours with increasing desperation really didn't help. If you're gonna write a book in one language with words from or inspired by another that you expect us to say aloud repeatedly every session, maybe include a pronunciation guide or something in the sidebar. Anyway, next up are frogs, so look forward to that and thanks for watching. Class dismissed.